In the latest YouGov poll, the Green Party are once again in second place behind Reform UK. But what's unique about this particular poll is an extra prompt let me start that again. But what is unique about this particular poll is an extra prompt which asks for participants to ignore tactical voting and vote for your true preference. The question read, if there were a general election in the UK tomorrow under preferential voting, how would you vote by ranking the following parties in the order of your preference? Put one for your most preferred party and so on. Now, based on that question, these are the results. And what you see is the Greens reach a whopping 23% and are only 4% behind Reform. Labour all the way down there on 16%. Now, in reality, people do tactically vote, and given that Labour are in government, many still believe that a vote for Labour is the best way of stopping reform. In Gorton and Denton, that was the argument made by Labour. Only they can stop reform. The Greens have no chance. And we all remember how that went down. Let's have a reminder of the results. I mean, it wasn't even close. The Greens won with over 4,000 votes, and Labour, they came third. However, you can't discount tactical voting, and it is true that Labour have a huge majority, whilst the Green Party have 5 MPs. In terms of the number of seats, mathematically, Labour would have the best chance of stopping reform. However, in terms of vote share, if we were to believe the polls, Labour would come away with less than 100 seats, and Reform winning a huge majority, with no party coming close. Now, Frank, you've been on the doorstep many, many times. What has been the biggest challenge for the Greens when trying to win over Labour voters? And do you still hear people say that Labour are better suited to beat Reform?
I think things have changed dramatically. And I mean, I joined the Green Party in late 2018, and just seeing how the landscape has shifted since then is incredible. We are challenging as one of the biggest political parties in this country. We're in the top five now, and now being in this poll in the top two is just incredible. And people on the doorstep are reflecting that back to us. People aren't afraid to vote Green. They want to go and vote for politics that resonates with the way they feel, with someone who is going to stand up for their communities. And the Green Party are offering that, and people aren't afraid to go and vote for that. So perhaps we owe Reform a bit of a favour in some ways, because they started this breaking down of the two party politics. And whilst they might be establishment, they've they've given a lot of people a reason to look for an alternative, and it's us that are providing that. And Labour have shown in Gorton and Denton that they are unable to stand up to Reform's divisive politics, and at the same time, they have proven that they want to stamp out progressive left wing voices and will resort to dirty tactics to try and beat us. But even that's not working. So they're going to be overtaken by the Lib Dems, I think, sometime soon.
I mean, on average, you're polling between 15 and 19%, with a lot of the latest polls showing that you're way above Labour. Um, However, that's not a complete replacement, and to have a shot at any kind of power, you need to be closer to 30%. So, what do you think the party needs to do to get the remainder of Labour voters, especially those who are a bit more moderate on side?
I mean, Zach Polanski's only been leader for what, 6 months, so give us some time. We've already had this huge surge in the polls, and I expect that we will only continue to grow as people hear more from Zach, from the Green Party, and what we're doing. And as we continue to win more and more elections, we've won the by election in Gorton and Denton, uh, we've won by elections in council seats now, and it's just one thing after another for the Green Party. We're just getting stronger and stronger. So I think people are coming on that journey with us, and they're seeing when Greens are in power what they're achieving for their communities, and they're liking that. So we're just offering more and more of that, and it's great to have people behind us. And yeah, Bruno the dog agrees.
I mean, do you think this has backfired slightly on Reform as well? Because obviously, Nigel Farage not that long ago was complaining that YouGov were publishing data that was favouring, so that was sort of withholding the Reform vote. Um, However, what's happened is when they've added this extra question in and we're looking at it this way, it's actually the Greens who benefit significantly from it. Um, I'm just interested to have any thoughts about that and sort of this idea from Reform that because they're now doing worse in the polls than what they were doing, even a couple of months ago, that somehow the pollsters are suppressing the support for Reform.
I think the reform vote clearly is starting to weaken and dampen a little bit, and
Mm,
it's been interesting to see as well at the Greens. Like there's almost like a Venn diagram crossover sometimes between people who are voting reform as like an anti-establishment move, and now that there's a hopeful, positive anti-establishment party which can win in the Green Party, maybe that's a reason why there's a shift away from reform in some ways. People using it as a protest vote, and now they don't need to in the same way. I don't know, but Reform certainly aren't doing anything to help themselves, and they're certainly showing that they can't be a party of government if they can't win in Gorton and Denton. If they can't beat the Greens, then what can they do? And so we're in a new era of politics, I think. But if you look at polls over the years, they've always shown that the Green Party is the most trusted in politics,
mm,
and that's continuing. And so the one thing Reform are doing is showing distrust in politics. They are they have their candidate for Gordon and Denton in Matthew Goodwin, they are showing that they're the same as the establishment politics. And so people
mm.
are, I think, coming to the Green Party and because we are a party of principle.
Can you explain that crossover a bit to people? Because I think some people struggle to understand this idea that there are people who might want to vote Reform that would then vote Green. I mean, we saw it in Gorton and Denton, and I remember being out on the doorstep with yourself as well during
Mm-hmm.
the campaign, and we were talking to people who didn't know whether to vote Reform or Green. But how does that come about? How do people end up in that situation? Because obviously the two parties are quite different.
They are, and it's a really interesting place to be, I think, as a voter. If you are thinking I could vote Reform or Green, and it sounds like something which perhaps doesn't make sense to people initially, but we are both parties which, well, Reform used to support proportional representation, but we're both parties which have over time both pushed for that, and we're both very anti-establishment. We want to
Mm,
turn the system on its head. Now, people have seen Reform um, sort of shift more to the centre, I think, as they're trying to, as Nigel Farage trying to position himself as Prime Minister. I think some people say when they say they're now going to go and vote for Restore or some of these other, even more right wing parties. I don't really see Reform as a centrist party myself, but we we do find this very interesting dynamic of Reform and Green, and it's people who want to be able to be away from the system which robs them of every penny.
mm,
And I think during a cost of living crisis, when you have corporate greed and people struggling to make ends meet, then people want to vote for anything or anyone who's prepared to go and smash a system. Reform want to smash things and leave them that way.
yeah.
We've got actual practical solutions. I think that's
Do you worry that the Green Party might peak too soon? I mean, we've kind of seen that with Reform, haven't we? Where there's been this huge trajectory where they've gone up and up and up and up in the polls, hit about 30%, and now they're sort of slowly heading back down again. We're probably about 3 years out from a general election, maybe less than that, depending on what happens. But is there a concern that this sort of Polanski effect will start to wear off, or are you confident that actually this growth is just going to keep coming?
I mean, we don't believe in infinite growth on a finite planet, so I can't sit here and claim that it will last forever. I think
Mm,
Zach's still got a lot more to give, and still a lot of people don't know Zach or haven't heard all of the great messaging that he's got to give, and there's still a narrative that the Green Party's only just started to tell, and so hopefully that peak will continue for quite some time. I think the elections that are coming on the 7th of May, the local elections, will be a big moment for the party,
mm,
particularly given that the majority of those elections up for grabs are in London. So there's going to be, and Keir Starmer's constituency of Camden as well, and what happens there. The Greens predicted to do really well on the council there and maybe throw it into an overall control. So it's always been Labour. So there are big things happening at the moment, but there is obviously at the back of my mind, I'll be really honest about it, this fear that last May, the story was all about reform, and they won everything, and
mm,
they have kind of disappointed people since. They said they were going to fix everything and they were going to cut taxes and that there'll be no more potholes. And look where we are. Reform councils have put taxes up to the maximum amount in some places. They've done that here in Derbyshire. Our potholes here have been rated the worst in the country. So those promises haven't come true. I don't necessarily think that the same thing is going to happen to the Green Party. We're a different kind of politics, often electing different kinds of politicians and councillors, people who actually want to work hard for their community. But we shall see what happens after May. It's an interesting time of having huge expectation for the party, which we've never had before, and whether we can match what people expect us to do. If people will go out and vote like they say they will in these polls, and how we as a party then go on from there. But it's an exciting time. I have much more hope than I have fear.
Well, that's good to hear, I suppose. I mean, do you worry that the um, like you've talked about obviously when like Reform and they've got into power and they've got won the councils. Um, it, are you concerned about the Greens, sweeping the floor and winning lots of seats in May because it then means that they have to perform, or I imagine that you're fairly confident that Green councillors will do a good job and be able to hold on to those seats.
Yeah, I think, and so my day job is working, managing campaigns. And I'm currently doing that in London. So I'm on the ground and seeing some of the hardworking candidates we've got, councillors that are seeking re-election that are going to help those teams with the experience they've got, but then also new people coming into the fold and lots of new members as well who've not just come from the Labour Party, but people who just want to take part in our politics and help make their communities better places to live. And so I think that we're going to enter administrations after the 7th of May with really good teams of people that just want to get things done. And that's where we differ from Reform, I think. Not to say that it's going to be easy. I think that there is a massive step for us as a party to take, and one that I think we have to take to professionalise, to grow up as a party. And we have to remember that we're only 50 years old as a party. It might seem like a long time, given that there's little startups now like Reform, but we have taken a long time to get to this point, against parties like Labour and Conservatives, which have been here forever. And we are slowly getting that experience, that expertise, and getting to a point now where I think we've talked about getting that 30% to be able to get into government. I think people want to see us get there.